Let's get some big picture stuff here, looking at this fundamental shift in America's economic policy. We're joined by David Oliver, public affairs strategist and founder of Minerva Strategy. It's great to see you.
Good morning.
You say it's hard to underestimate the size of this potential shift. For decades, we've had globalization. It's more efficient. The economics textbooks say it is. But there's a major U-turn going on in Washington.
Yeah, it's good to see this as part of the big geopolitical picture. And for some time, and I've been arguing this for a bit, I had a piece in the National Post last week which talks about this. We've had 3 administrations now, but even going back to Obama, where the US has signalled a shift in terms of its geopolitical alliances and how it's approaching things. Particularly with the focus on Asia, where that's become more pointed in Trump's first term, but through Biden and now to Trump too, has been this sense of starting to create this idea of fortress US, or maybe even fortress US North America, and the protection of the US market. And that's the big change. We've gone from a very neoliberal economic model since the early 80s with Reagan and Thatcher, through to now one which is going to see a significant amount of protectionism. I think the interesting thing to think about, though, is this is still a debate within the administration itself, because you've got the purists who want to go for very high flat tariffs, keeping them high for a very long period of time, and the more pragmatists.
Peter Navarro,
exactly,
for example. Yeah,
exactly.
Sorry,
So you've got the Peter Navarros who, this is religion almost for them. They believe that this is, America has got to completely insulate itself, has got to become a self-sustaining market. And, the way to do that is very high tariffs for a very long period of time. Do not negotiate down from those. But then we've got the pragmatic side of things, which I think does include the Commerce Secretary, Lutnick. It does include the Treasury Secretary, Scott Bessent. Probably also maybe even includes the US Trade Representative, Jameson Greer. And they see more of a sense of, yes, this might be the long-term trajectory of things, but there's more of a pragmatic way to get there, if that makes sense, versus the purists who want to do it now, hard, fast, and really push it hard.
That's interesting. So you say that this has been brewing for a while, even under Obama and Biden, because, of course, Obama and Biden had Made in America policies.
Yes.
And some of Trump's tariff policies, Biden never rolled back. So it's not entirely new with Trump, this thing.
No, and this is a little bit what I got into that piece. It's... the US politics that's driving this is this sense of the US hollowed out middle class, and whether you buy into that, there's a sense that there's a vote for wanting to your point, to have Made in America, to have more of a focus in terms of the US jobs. There's skepticism about how many manufacturing jobs, even can be created in the US. But, and also the timescale that those can be done over a period of time. But this sense of kind of meeting that political need. The language has changed, obviously, from Trump to Biden to Trump, but some of the policy initiatives, if you just pointed out, have been the same. Tariffs stayed high, particularly on China, through Biden. But we're seeing a different emphasis now on the entire world, and allies not necessarily being treated as allies anymore under Trump too, which is obviously a big shift.
You talked about the shift to Asia. So obviously, post-World War II, America was focused on its Atlantic links with Europe, the Marshall Plan and all that stuff. But we've heard this. I mean, obviously, China is seen as a major threat.
Yes.
And so they're thinking more about themselves as a Pacific nation.
China is thinking of themselves more as a Pacific nation. America. Yeah. Well, I think America recognizing that in the future, it's both its quest for critical minerals, AI, chips, the things that it sees as strategic to its economy in the future, and where it faces the risk as a nation, and obviously with the Pacific Ocean being in between them, that is the focus for America, and very clearly, as Obama signalled in 2011 with his pivot to Asia.
And of course, Biden brought in an incredibly aggressive industrial policy.
Yes.
Heavy spending with an emphasis on green technology. A lot of the money actually, ironically, went into Republican-controlled areas because the permits are easier to get.
Yes.
But Trump has backed away from that, you think?
Well, the Trump emphasis is moved away from the Biden approach being industrial policy. So that was IRA. So the Inflation Reduction Act was a pure piece of industrial policy, to Trump's blunt tool of tariffs, which is essentially to say we'll protect the market and then we'll let the market sort itself out within the United States once we've done that.
Are they not worried about the example of Argentina, famously? It put up high tariff barriers under Perón, the economy stagnated. I suppose America is so big, it can more plausibly seek autarky, self-sufficiency.
Yeah, well, yeah, and this is the debate, I think, that's playing out within the administration. And this is why we still, although we've seen leaks, obviously we've got the big announcement. It's obviously going to be their signature announcement. He's doing it from the Rose Garden, which I believe has been overhauled. You know, and right up to the wire, we understand that he's either made a decision or he's not. And that is because this, to your point, this debate about how far it goes from, you know, autarky on one side, which, you know, would be the Navarro approach, versus, you know, the Lutniks and the Besants came from Wall Street. You know, these are pragmatic guys, and they may see the long-term trajectory. And I think that's really where it's coming down to, is how fast, how hard and how fast do they go? And how does that policy endure, you know, for the rest of this administration and possibly inform future administrations as well?
We better get to Canada here. And naturally, this is a threat to our economy. We are such an open economy, so dependent on exports to the United States. If you were advising Mark Carney right now, the Prime Minister, what would you say? How should he approach this?
I mean, albeit for me to give, you know, Mark Carney advice, you know, and I think that he's in an interesting position. And given his background, obviously being a central banker, and his sense of his grip of where the economics will go on this, it's interesting, I think, if we look at the noises that have just come out, particularly from him, which is, you know, Canada will respond. But I think there's more of a my sense is that there's more moderated language around that now. One, recognising that Canada can't keep tariffing forever in response, because that will hurt our economy. And I think I saw this morning that, you know, I think the Globe has got a report on the fact that the government is looking at being very careful around things like food, and things that will particularly hurt Canadian jobs as well. So, you know, my sense is there's going to be more of a measured response from Canada and actually lots of other countries as well. I think people are learning that it's not always a good idea to have your own knee-jerk response. Yes, protect yourself. Yes, make sure that you're responding with a degree of integrity, if you want to call it that, but not doing anything which is obviously going to be stupid or detrimental to yourself as well.
We've very little time left, and I'm bringing up a big issue here, but is the existence of Canada as an independent nation under threat? And the reason I ask you, apparently Michael Bliss wrote a classic history of Canadian business, Northern Enterprise, and he said the one sure prescription for the eventual failure of the Canadian experiment would be to create an ever-widening gap in standards of living. Yeah. And we've had this terrible productivity. So is this a threat to our independent existence?
Well, on the productivity side, Canada shares a problem with many countries on that at the moment.
Although it has been a laggard, I believe.
It has, but so it has been so in many European countries as well. And the UK has particularly also struggled, particularly with its competitiveness and productivity as well. I think the interesting thing at the moment with this tariff side of things, you know, it's a big question. You're right. I think what's really fascinating about this is the US was the strongest economy coming into this year in the world. And it was outperforming everybody. And now we're seeing this instead. So to your point, if one of the signals of whether Canada can maintain its independence, its sovereignty, is how well it performs against the US economy, well, there's a significant spanner being thrown in the works of the US economy at the moment. We have to see then how that affects us. I think the long-term travel to really look forward to is where North America as a continent goes in this geopolitical reality as we see these different regional trading blocks. And regional geopolitical blocks. And I think that's the real long-term trend to watch.
David, thank you very much. I hope you come back, because I love this big picture stuff, and your analysis is fascinating. Thank you very much indeed.
Pleasure.
David.